Burnout. We've all been there. You start a new game, ideas are flowing, and your motivation's at an all-time high. But then it happens. Your motivation dwindles, and your game is left collecting dust just like your Steam library. Burnout is always going to happen, but there are ways to deal with it. So I'm going to share with you the 3 steps I'll be using to deal with burnout as a solo game dev. And just for you, I'll even throw in an extra one at the end. So let's start with something easy. Step number 1, make smaller tasks. As a game dev, there's no shortage of tasks you need to do, but making a checklist and being able to cross things off is one of the most motivating tools out there. However, if your task is make a game, you're probably never going to cross that off. But if your list says get out of bed, I can almost do that every day. More realistically, you can have tasks like add feature or fix bug. Having these tasks will not only motivate you to open your project, but once you finish them, you can use that momentum to take on harder tasks, like talking to a girl. Okay, maybe we're not ready for that yet. But this is the method I use to get back into developing my own game, and diving back into a project with code that looks like this isn't easy. So I wanted to start with some smaller tasks I knew I could do. I've been wanting to add an outline to objects on the ground, since right now they're pretty hard to see. My previous attempt at this were not great, but luckily when I was making my short person game, I found a great asset that works perfectly. I just had to update all my items to use the script, and it worked great. Game dev is so easy, why'd I ever take a break? Anyways, next I wanted to add some quality of life changes. In my game, when placing items, a green ghost object will appear, and it turns red when you can't place it. The only problem is, sometimes you have no idea why you can't place it. For the planter, you can tell if it's colliding with something else, but other items have special conditions. For example, the sprinkler needs to be placed by a water source, but who would know that other than me? So to help everyone out, I made text display on screen telling you what is preventing you from placing the object. Now the sprinkler tells you if it needs a water source, and the scarecrow will tell you it needs power. I don't love the UI yet, but functionally, it's perfect, so cross it off the list. I also finally checked out post-processing, and with just a few clicks, my game went from looking like this to this. There are plenty more settings I can tweak, but for now, this is already looking better. And now all that's left on my list is make a good segue to the next step. Step 2, mix up what you're doing. If you do the same thing every day, you're gonna get bored and start hating it. You might love ice cream, but if you eat it every day, it'll lose its charm. The same goes for your game. If you're coding the same system every day, it will get less exciting. Lucky for you, there is so much to do as a solo dev. You have plenty of options to keep it fresh. You can make art or 3D models. You can make a YouTube channel to market your game. You can even just make a different game altogether. But I'd be careful with this one. Keep it small. You don't want a pile of just half-finished games. I do this frequently on my channel to keep things fresh, and I normally learn a thing or two to bring back to my main game. Most recently, I spent 30 days learning Blender. This was a huge accomplishment for me, since my models were pretty bad. But now that I made them, I have to import them into my game and get them set up like the original objects. But it wasn't as simple as just one object for each model. Instead, every model has at least 2 versions, and some have 3. There's a green model for when you're placing things, which spawns a different model that will actually work. But if you just drop an item, it has to spawn a different one altogether. This took a ton of time, but really helped me get back into things, since I had to relearn a lot of systems I made and how I set them up. To not just spew a list at you, here's all the models I made and how to reset up in my game. Yep, that's a lot of things I can cross off my list. After I got that all working, my game was finally starting to look good, but now we face the next challenge. Step 3, probably the most important, keep the scope small. This is the task I need to work on the most. You never want your game to be overscoped. Imagine you want to climb Everest. Already a monumental task, but you take it on anyways. You get halfway up the mountain just to look up and see the mountain is now 3 times bigger and you've actually barely started. This is called scope creep, and game devs do this to themselves all the time. If you're hacking away at a game, but you're making ideas faster than you're making the actual game, you're gonna feel like you're making no progress. This is even more overwhelming as a solo dev when you have to worry about the design, the code, the models, and the sound for every cool new idea you have. It is a tough balancing act though, because while some games might need a little more time in the oven, others never even make it out. They've been left there to burn with the cheese from the pizza you made 3 months ago. For a good example of an overscoped game, look no further than my own game. I've been working on it for 2 years now, and it isn't even a game yet. Sure, you can grow carrots, chop down a tree, and build things, but I haven't even started the game loop yet. This is partially to blame on how overcomplicated my original plan was. My idea was to make a survival game like Valheim, but have it more focused on base defense and farming. Really, that's just 3 whole games mashed together. If I want to actually finish this one day, I need to cut some things out. So that's what I'm going to do. Instead of 3 whole games, I just want to focus on the base defense part, as I think that would be the most fun. The other two I can come back to later if I still want, but for now, I really need to just focus on one thing. This will completely change some of the mechanics I already made, but I think in the end, finishing a game is better than just adding more and more mechanics. Alright, I gave you 3 methods now, but what if life gets too busy and you still struggle to open Unity? Well, if all else fails, you can always do what I did. And number 4, take a break. I get it, sometimes you just need some time off to refresh. For the last few months, I haven't touched my game because I was just too burnt out. I also got married, went on a honeymoon, built a deck, got a cyber cert, and bought a puppy. But that all probably had nothing to do with it. Alright, I was a little busy, and I think my videos and my game were suffering because of it, and that is just not how I wanted to develop my game. Luckily, taking a break has given me plenty of time to reflect and realize how to better manage my burnout and my game. But if taking a break scares you, don't worry, your game is still going to be there when you get back, and you'll probably come back with a new set of eyes and a new sense of motivation. Just maybe don't wait 8 months, that seems like a bit long. And with that, I can cross another thing off my list. If you want to see how I made all those cool models, I'll link it on screen now. And I'll see you guys next time.